much to so many of us as we come to celebrate the life of Chris, as we come to celebrate the life of Christopher, as we come to celebrate the life of Christopher Eaton, whatever his name was to you, we come today. We come to celebrate that life, and we come to be a part of the celebration because of how much he meant to each and every one of us that are in this room today. For truly, it is he that brings us together. It is he that brings us together because he believed in unity. He believed in staying together. He believed in standing together and winning together and being the individual that you could be, knowing that yes, we are our brother's keeper. He was a fine example of the unity, a fine example of caring for each other and making sure that we not leave out the least, the lost, and the left out. So we come today to celebrate, and we thank you for coming and sharing with this family as they turn the pages of their life, never ever to forget, but hold on to the sweet memories that Chris brought into each one of their lives. You have been given an order of service, a program. When you enter the building, we're going to follow that program, and each individual that will come before you will introduce themselves, and they will make their presentation as outlined on our program today. Let's all give Chris a round of applause. For bringing us all together and displaying that true sign of unity, the true sign of conquering the mountain, because we are helping each other climb to the top. We will now continue on with the program as it has been outlined for us today.
Good afternoon, folks. First of all, I want to thank Scott, Gail, and Michael for having me here today to read the obituary of Chris. And I want to thank all of you for coming here and being here and for knowing Chris and giving your support to him and for the family by showing up here today. When Scott asked me to get up here and read the obituary, I first wondered why he would do such a thing, because he knows I'm from Carlsbad. And I used to play for the Carlsbad Kingdom, and May's score and May's game this past year is still so fresh, I'm sure, for many of you. And so I asked him to make sure that he needed, before I got up here, make sure he took a look at every one of your pockets, and y'all didn't have any weapons, you didn't have any baseballs to throw at me, any tomatoes, or anything like that. But so I hope he did that. No, but I know Scott knows this, and that is back in May, when Sandia played Carlsbad for the state championship, even though I'm from Carlsbad, I rooted for you guys. I rooted for Chris, because I knew what kind of individual he was. And I've known about Chris for many years through Scott. Every time Scott and I would go fishing all around the country, he would always talk about his boys, and get to talk about who they were, about their accomplishments, and nothing but great things came from him. And so when I first met Chris, I realized what he was talking about. A few years ago, Scott and Chris came and met me over outside of our teacher in Carlsbad to go hunting for quail. And before we went out there and hunted, my cousin brought him along with me, and he had asked me, he said, how do these guys hunt? How are they? And so I said, I don't know. I've only fished with Scott, so we'll see. So we get out there, and we get out there to the sands, get in side by side. We start taking off down the road. I'm making sure these guys have enough bullets, because there's quite a few quail out there. And it wasn't about 10, 15 minutes down the road, a covey of quail just burst out. And so we stopped the side by side, and before we knew it, there goes Chris running as fast as he could after his quail. And at that moment, I told my cousin, I said, he looks just like us, So he took off running, and we must have ran, 20 miles that day looking for this quail. And it was in the course of that weekend that we hunted that I got to know Chris a lot, and that I can tell you that everything he did with passion. He hunted with passion. He talked about Michael. He talked about his dad with passion and the love he has for him. I mean, he mentioned wanting to take his brother out there many times to go and enjoy and do the things that we were doing. He talked about you guys, about his baseball players, about your accomplishments on the field. But more importantly, he talked about your accomplishments off the field and in school. And so one of the days that we had hunted, I brought my son along. And my son at the time, I think he was about 12, 13 years old. A baseball player, kind of a big kid. And, I introduced my son to Chris. And it wasn't 15, 20 minutes into it that we were hunting that Chris stopped. And he said, all right, I got to give you my speech right now before we go any further. And he turned to my son. And he said, you got to come try out for my team. He said, once you're there at that level, come try out. And, we've got a great group of kids. We've got great baseball players. But more importantly, all of our kids get great, very good grades. And so we prepare our kids, not just for high school, but for the next level. And so he went on, a good little rant about his passion of coaching and his passion of creating young men, young, strong men, smart men. And so it was at that time, I thought it was really cool because I played Canadian baseball. And, our focus was more on the win and just getting that championship and not so much the education part of it. And Chris made it a point to talk more about that than anything else. And as you grow older, that is the more important thing, is your academic success. So here we're here to honor Chris, and I'm honored to be here to read his obituary, his story of his life, brief story of his life. Christopher Scott Eaton. There were many sides to Chris Eaton, like a diamond in the Mexico sun. He was a head baseball coach and a teacher at Sandia High School. He was a talented writer and historian. He appeared in the television series Better Call Saul, published articles in a national coaches magazine, and was writing a book about a rock and roll legend. He wrote poetry and loved to fly fish mountain streams for trout, and he always released them for another day. Chris was born in Albuquerque on September 2nd, 1987, and was raised in Corrales. He attended Sandia Prep and Cibola High. His early passion for baseball led to him being named team co-captain, most valued player, and a first-team All-State selection from a Cougars team that won a district championship for the first time in more than 20 years. However, Chris once told his brother that he believed he actually was a basketball player stuck in a baseball coach's body. Chris graduated from Eastern Mexico University in 2011 with a bachelor's degree in communications. There he played infield for Coach Phil Claybaugh for 4 years, competing in the rough and tumble Lone Star Conference on the plains of Eastern Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma. Grueling 10 or 15-hour road trips were just part of the deal. Chris was proud that the Greyhounds were a blue-collar bunch, playing the oldest and greatest game on a former cow pasture on the edge of Fort Dallas. Later, he was excited when old teammates stopped by, always introducing them to his young players and inviting them to stay around for practice. After college, Chris began building his coach's resume, first as a graduate assistant to Ray Birmingham at UNM, and then as an assistant at West Texas A&M, Colorado School of Mines, Texas A&M, Texarkana, and New Mexico Highlands University. He earned a master's degree in sports administration at Highlands in 2014. He then returned to Albuquerque and served as an assistant and co-head coach with his mentor, Paul Hewitt, at Sandia Prep. In 2017, at the age of 29, Chris was named as the youngest high school head baseball coach in New Mexico, taking over from John Gunther at Sandia High. From his first season in 2018, Chris and the Matadors dedicated themselves to honoring the late Coach Gunther on and off the field. After losing time, including the entire 2020 season, to state-mandated COVID shutdowns, the Matadors in 2021 and 2022 won back-to-back district titles for the first time in 42 years. The team reached the state semifinal game in 2021 and the state championship game this year. He was most proud, however, with the national recognition for academic excellence the team had received. Chris was selected as this year's Class 5A State Baseball Coach of the Year. He was named as the 5A District 2 Coach of the Year each of the past 2 years. He was honored with an Outstanding Teacher Award at Sandia High 4 times from 2019 through 2022. He was a board member of the New Mexico Baseball Coaches Association. He strategized with others about making the game more accessible to youngsters whose families cannot afford the cost of private travel ball. Chris often said some of his most fun as a coach came from playing pickup basketball games with his baseball players. He claimed that by himself on a good day, he could beat any group of 5 on hardwood. Away from sports or the outdoors, Chris usually was researching, reading, or writing. He could discuss in amazing detail unique events such as the 1947 UFO crash northwest and north of Roswell. He first wrote about the UFO incident as an 11-year-old after he interviewed a former Air Force officer in Roswell. Chris was scheduled to give a talk next April at the Albuquerque Museum on the late poet and rock star Jim Morrison and his long ago connections to New Mexico. Among other little-known facts, Chris auditioned for and appeared in 2 episodes of the television series Better Call Saul. In his teens, he once traveled by himself to Cooperstown to tour the Baseball Hall of Fame. At his best, Chris had a mischievous twinkle in his eye and he smiled with his whole face. He made people laugh, sometimes when they least expected or wanted to. He hugged rival coaches and openly congratulated opposing players, even in the fog of disappointing loss. Behind the scenes, he counseled with and stressed over his students' and players' problems, their ups and downs, as if they were his own. He would talk for hours on the phone with players and would sometimes surprise a player with the gift of a book on a subject that had been puzzling over. Chris lived life on Chris's terms, and he was not afraid to question the established path of those in authority. He asked his players to call him Chris. This is how we have always done it. There's not much of an argument in Chris's book. The Albuquerque Journal described Chris the other day as driven. He could be relentless, grinding away despite his personal struggles, always with the intention of making people around him better. His death highlights the urgent need to talk about mental health issues, encourages sufferers to seek help, and improve the availability of resources for those who suffer. A scholarship fund or foundation is being established in Chris's name to provide assistance to young players in need and to address mental health issues. Information about this charity and how to support it will be made available in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you again for having me.
A round of applause as Scott's family, Chris's family now comes and speaks to this awaiting body. Chris's family.
I am really proud to be Chris's father. Chris had more adventures and affected more people in 35 years than many of us, most of us do in 70. He felt life's ups and downs, its joys and sorrows very, very deeply, maybe too deeply. But he made us laugh, he made us cry. Chris tried so hard to learn everything he could. He tried so hard to make us and our community better. He tried so hard to make sense of this world. And he managed to pull it off for 35 years. The pain of losing him is crushing, but I fear that my pain is nothing compared to the pain that Chris felt at times. Chris had a lot of fun in this gym when he was a kid. Probably more fun than he had over there in the classrooms. So thank you all for coming to this building to honor Chris. Knowing that you care enough to take time out on a busy holiday Sunday to be here means a lot to all of us. We will be asking for your support and contributions in the future as we work out a foundation or fund or something that we haven't quite decided yet in honor of Chris to help other athletes. We are going to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and hope you all do the same. And I found these at the house this morning. We only have about 1,000 more. So there you go. Thank you.
I'm Dale Eaton. I'm Chris's mom, and I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate Chris's life this afternoon. The outpouring of love and support and kindness and prayers for Chris and our family has just been amazing, and it's been just so comforting and just greatly appreciated. I want to read a letter that I wrote to Chris after he died. Dear Chris, I am so honored to be your mom. You have brought more joy and adventure to my life than I could ever imagine. You became one of my best friends, one of my biggest supporters, and my sounding board for all things confusing. You convinced me to do so many things outside of my comfort zone. You flashed your huge smile, which got me every time, and said, "Hey Mom, don't worry, I got this. I love you." I believed in you, and I trusted you, and I have become a much better human being because of you. I am heartbroken and devastated that you are not here today, but I'm also so thankful and grateful for the unforgettable memories that you created and shared with me the past 35 years. I will never forget your boundless energy, your drive, persistence, intelligence, passion, curiosity, sense of humor, contagious laugh, that beautiful smile, and love and compassion for others. You always tried to make this world a better place for everyone else. You brought so much joy and excitement to my life and every life that you touched. You lived life to the fullest and were loved and admired by so many. You have made me so proud. Chris, you're finally at peace and free from the pain and suffering of mental illness. I can think of no better way to honor you than to be as relentless and determined as you were to make some positive change, whether big or small, in our broken healthcare system. In the meantime, please know you will be missed by many and never forgotten. Your spirit and legacy will live on as your family and your friends, players and colleagues, and all the people that you have touched will continue to share their Chris stories with each other. I love you forever, my beautiful and loving son, Mom. Thank you.
This is humbling, man. I mean, just look around. We were told that these bleachers fit 400, 450 people. And it's all filled up. There's people standing, people sitting down. I mean, that's what Chris did. He brought everyone together. And he did it in so many ways. And he impacted so many people in his own individual way. And I know all of us have our own unique relationship with Chris. And we all have our stories. Some of us have more than others, but everyone's got one. And I encourage all you guys to share those stories. That's going to carry on his legacy. And it's sad, man. It sucks. There's no two ways about it. I lost a brother. My parents lost a son. Family lost a cousin. I mean, these guys lost a coach. It is so hard. And it's been hard. And everyone has been grieving differently. I encourage you guys to feel those feelings. Be sad. Be angry. But most of all, just show love. Share love with each other. That's what Chris would have wanted. That's what Chris did. That's all he did. He was love. He gave love to everyone, his players, little kids at camp, all of us, and I think that's just going to be the best way to honor him. It's sad. It really is sad, but we're here to celebrate his life. I mean, I can't even look at these tables right now because it'll just bring too many tears, but I know there's going to be a lot more laughter than there are tears. And again, that's the way Chris would have wanted it. That's how we're going to carry on his legacy. To me, Chris was everything to me, man. He was a brother. He was a mentor. He was my biggest fan. I remember just playing wiffle ball games after wiffle ball games in my mom's house, and oh my gosh, that guy could freaking compete, man. And he made me cry, and he made me so upset, and I hated him for it. God. But he would always say, he'd always have me on. He'd be like, Mike, just one more. Come on. Whether I beat him or he beat me, he would always ask for one more game. Football, basketball, ping pong, video games, and you name it. And I am eternally grateful to him because of that, and because I had that relationship with him. He was family, man. It was a different relationship between he and I. And the part that gets me, the painful part, is I don't get another opportunity with that. We don't get any more basketball games. We don't get to share the baseball field together again. And I just want to say, we all have our regrets. We could have done this and that, but man, Chris gave us everything. For 35 years, he gave us everything he possibly had. And he loved others more than he loved himself. And it showed. He gave and he gave and he gave. He made you feel so special. And I want to hear everyone's Chris story. I really do. When we're over there in that reception area, I want to hear them all. Because that's going to be the best way to remember him. I have a little journal that I write down 1 or 2 sentences just in a memory that pops up. And I want to be able to refer back to that and smile. I'm going to cry. The crying's going to come. But man, he gave us so much more than that. He encouraged. He made you believe in yourself. I had one of those players tell me, man, Chris believed in me before I believed in myself. And that's who he was. He just gave. He gave and he loved. So that's what we're going to do. Everyone in here right now is family. I consider you all family. This is so humbling to see everyone right now. This is amazing. And this is just a small portion of the lives and the people that he touched and he influenced. And I just want to thank you guys so much for coming out. I want to hug you guys. I want to laugh with you guys. I want to cry. This is, Chris, again, he brought us together. Not the way we would have wanted, but we're all here for the same reason. And I'll close with this, man. The love and support that you guys have all showed us, the text messages, the phone calls, the hugs, the story, everything, it has literally kept us afloat. It has kept us standing here today. And without you guys, without your support, there's no way. No one can do anything significant alone. Chris knew that. That's why look at all you guys. This is amazing. And so I'll ask you guys, we need your help. We need your support. What got to Chris is an evil thing, but it affects everyone. Whether it's you personally, whether you have someone in your family, someone you know. I can't tell you the amount of stories that we've heard. So it's there, it's real. And there's no sense in shying away from it. And it needs to be talked about. And I want to get rid of this stigma. Come on, man. This can't happen again. Parents shouldn't feel this way again. Brothers shouldn't feel this way again. And if we can help one little brother not have to feel this way, then that's a win. That's a win in my book. I know there's going to be more, but that's what we need from you guys. So details to come, like I said, on how we can do that. But I know that you guys are going to continue to show your love and your support. And Chris is here, man. He is here with us right now. And he's probably already over in the reception area getting a head start on the food. So guys, I love all you right here, right now. If you're in this room, you are family. I love each and every single one of you. I want to look you in the eyes. I want to hug you. I want to hear your Chris story. You guys meant so much to him. You guys mean so much to us. So I love you guys. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Hewitt, longtime friend of the Eatons. I've known the Eatons since Chris was in middle school here at Sandia Prep. I was Chris's baseball coach in 8th through 10th grade, and also coached his brother Michael all the way through high school. Chris and his family hold a special place in my heart. So I quickly just share a couple quick stories that I know most of you in this room can relate to. Michael touched on a little bit, but Chris could really eat. I mean, really eat. A lot of us have stories about how much food he would eat when we went out. I remember one specific instance when we were in Kansas for one of his college summer games. I decided to go eat with him and a few of his players. Of course, not knowing how much he could eat, I decided to offer to pay for his dinner. This was a big mistake. I didn't realize he was going to order 2 full entrees and 2 full appetizers. He proceeded to eat everything and wanted to order more. That was the last time I bought dinner where I put him on a 1 entree limit. My wife would also bake kale chips from our garden, and he would come over and eat the entire pan, and then want her to cook some more. Second story that a lot of you can relate to, if you knew Chris, you know he loved facts and history about obscure places, people, or events. He especially enjoyed studying about Jim Morrison when he focused for the Doors. I could always count on Chris to call or text me about the places I was traveling. Last Christmas, my wife and I were visiting our daughter in Melbourne, Florida. And as soon as Chris found out I was going to be in Melbourne, he started calling, texting, and harassing me to go see the childhood home of Jim Morrison there in Melbourne. He proceeded to text me the exact location and Google map of Jim's home. I told my wife that we had to go see it because Chris would never let me hear at the end of it if we didn't take pictures. A lot of us have similar stories. I have so many stories, and I'm sure a lot of you also have some funny, crazy stories. Please continue, as Michael said, to share those stories with friends and family. Legacy. I want to talk about legacy a little bit. Legacy is something that is passed on. It may take many forms. Maybe one's faith, ethics, and core values. Legacy may come from one's character and life we lead. I believe Chris's legacy is the love that he had for his players, coaches, friends, and most importantly, his family. His love for all of us was genuine. He cared deeply, loved with all his heart, and often carried our pain deep in his soul. Chris was a coach. The definition of coach is someone who gives people a special teaching in a particular sport in order to prepare them for the game or for the examination. The examination is life, and Chris was dedicated to preparing young men for the game of life. Sandia baseball. Matador baseball players made him so proud. He often called me to talk about what his teams were doing and their successes. He loved his school, his players, on and off the field. The GPA awards his team received were extremely critical to him. Helping lead his team to state championship last year was a great accomplishment for him. He loved his coaches and appreciated all they did for the team and for him. They were and continue to be there for all the boys, and that was important to Chris. Chris was a friend to so many of us. You could always count on Chris to make us laugh and enjoy life. Chris was a brother. Having a brother is like having a best friend by your side. He will keep you, he will help you, annoy you, quarrel with you, but above all, he is always there for you. Chris was especially proud of his brother Michael. He followed Michael's sports career carefully and one of his biggest fans. Chris would spend countless hours hitting ground balls and throwing batting practice to Michael. Michael, you were always number one to him, and he loved you more than words can describe. Chris's parents gave us a young man that we experienced amazing life events with. Chris impacted all of us. For every story we shared with each other, there are hundreds more. Gail and Scott were always there for Chris, no matter the circumstances. Whether it was in joy or in pain, for this act of love for your son, we are so thankful. Chris, rest easy, my friend. You made us laugh, cry, celebrate. You were there for so many of us. We will never really understand your pain, but know that we want to hug you again, talk with you again. We're at a loss, but we pray that you are playing catch with new friends and sharing that wonderful smile with the inches. I'm going to leave all of you with this. Live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, and leave the rest to God. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brooke Lasky, and this is my son Luke. Thank you to the Eatons for letting us both have the honor of speaking about Chris today. I first met Chris in the summer of 2015. Luke was 8 or 9 years old and playing baseball in Alameda Little League. Chris had just returned home from a coaching stint of coaching college baseball in Texarkana, Texas. Our stars aligned because my wife, Sarah, like many Little League parents, thought that her son, Luke, was too good, too talented for his Little League coach. The problem was that I was the coach. I had no idea, but my wife, Sarah, had put an ad on Craigslist seeking out someone to give extra lessons to Luke in our backyard when I was on the road for work. Guess who answered her ad? Chris and Luke were immediately a match made in heaven. For the past 7.5 years, Chris has been Luke's primary baseball influence. And the amazing part is he never actually coached Luke on the field between the foul lines. But he's always been there. It was throwing batting practice in the rain in our backyard, hitting fly balls, just playing catch and talking, and especially standing along fences all over Albuquerque for the last 7 or 8 seasons, just watching Luke play at Alameda, all-star games, club games, and while Luke played for a completely different high school than Sandia where Chris coached. But Chris has been so much more than just a baseball tutor for Luke. In hindsight, it's hard to imagine Luke having a more influential relationship in life so far with anyone outside of his family other than Christopher Eaton. Yes, Chris was always there to guide Luke on all aspects of baseball, but Chris was always there to also talk with him about school, college, career, fly fishing, ping pong, and each of their favorite historical topics. Jim Morrison for Chris and Roberto Clemente for Luke. Perhaps most importantly, Chris taught Luke the importance of community service. We all know about all of the camps that Chris put on for kids over the years. In Chris's social media profiles, the picture Chris has chosen is of himself coaching young children at these camps. Chris put on lots of camps. He helped out and attended camps with others, and Chris went to fundraiser after fundraiser after fundraiser when asked. I once asked Chris if he himself would help me coach a bunch of young kids, 8 to 12 years old, in a big baseball fundraiser that I was putting on for one of Luke's teammates who had leukemia. Chris was like, yeah, sure, I'll be there. Chris not only came, but then he rolled in with the entire Sandia A, B, and C teams, like 45 kids, to help out. That was Chris Eaton. As I was writing this, I asked myself, why was Chris so successful in mentoring boys? What made him different? And I thought of 2 primary reasons. Number one, because in a lot of ways, Chris was a kid himself. Did you all see him spraying water on all of his kids after they beat La Cueva in the state semifinals last year? It's like, Chris, they're supposed to be dumping Gatorade on you, not vice versa. But that was Chris, he was a kid. But the second and more important reason why Chris was so successful in mentoring kids is because Chris talked to every kid like they were an adult. He had great respect for children, and he was very blunt and forthright with any baseball player between the ages of 8 and 18. Heck, Chris was the first youth coach I ever heard say that sometimes, under rare and unusual and unique circumstances, the only solution is to put a fastball right into the opposing batter's ribs. And when Chris said it, there was like a twinkle in his eye that just made him irresistible. So before I turn the mic over to Luke, I want to end with a little anecdote about Chris. I bet that many of you will be surprised to hear that Chris recently applied for the incoming 2023 class of the University of New Mexico School of Law. Chris and I talked about it extensively over the past 6 months. He was absolutely 100% certain that he could simultaneously be both a law student and the coach of the varsity team at Sandia. And there's no doubt in my mind he could have done it. As part of the application process, he had to submit 2 letters of recommendation. Now, I don't know what Chris was thinking, but he asked this then 16-year-old kid to write one of his letters of recommendation for law school. How risky was that? Well, Luke submitted it a couple of weeks before Chris passed away, and I didn't edit it at all, except I did drop a couple of footnotes about Chris's personal and team achievements. Academic All-Americans for 4 straight years, All-District, New Mexico Coach of the Year. You know all the stats. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I would like to finish with Luke's closing paragraph from his letter of recommendation. Luke said, "Chris has guided me to be the young man I am today, showing me what a good person should be while also showing me how to excel in the game of baseball. I will always look up to him, and he is one of the biggest reasons why I try every day to be the best person I can be. I know that I said that Chris could be a force in the courtroom, but truthfully, I think he will be even more impressive as a counselor. That's the side of lawyering that many forget. But Chris is a natural-born counselor. He was born for the role." Truer words could not be spoken about Chris. He counseled his players, he counseled his students, he counseled his friends, his opponents, his family, and he sure counseled me, especially on how to be a better dad. Gail, Scott, and Michael, I am so grateful for the past 7.5 years that I had with Chris. And Chris, thank you so much for giving so much more to your community than you ever took away.
I'm really happy my dad didn't cry, because I would have been screwed from now on. Hey there, I'm Luke Lasky. Growing up, I took to two baseball idols almost immediately and clung on to them until now. Those two baseball idols are Roberto Clemente and Chris Eaton, two legends and mentors in their own right who were tragically taken from this world too early. Roberto, at the age of 38, through an airplane crash, and Chris, at the age of 35, when he tragically lost his battle with mental illness a few weeks ago. After the death of Clemente in 1972, people immediately talked about things Clemente had yet to accomplish, that his death would be what people remembered him for. But now, 50 years later, we remember Clemente for the good he did while he was alive, rather than the manner of his death. Many of us here today are stricken with grief after the loss of Chris, telling ourselves things such as, he had so much more to do, or it was far too short of a life. But we should not be focusing so much on what more he could have accomplished, but what he had already done in his young life. We can include State Coach of the Year, State Runner-Up, and one of the youngest head coaches in New Mexico State history. But as many of you know, those would really be bottom of the barrel of what Chris would be most proud of. He'd be proud of his success in turning his team into one of the most academically accomplished teams in the state. He'd be proud of the relationships he had with each and every one of his players, pushing them to be the best people, not just players on the field they could be. Chris constantly told me that being a ball player is worthless without a brain to go along with it. And he was completely right. Pushing good grades and sound morals, Chris made his ball players not just better players of the game, but better humans in general. I hope that, like Roberto, we can walk out of this celebration of life here today celebrating how Chris accomplished so much in his short time on Earth. Never did he waste a second, constantly making every moment special and every person feel loved. Each and every one of you felt love from Chris Eaton. If Chris were alive today, he would say that he would be honored to be put on a two-man list with Roberto Clemente. But in reality, Chris embodied so much that Roberto conveyed, and then some. In my opinion, it is Roberto who should be honored to be put on a two-man list with Chris. I'm a high school junior, and I just turned 17 years old. When I met Chris Eaton, I was an 8-year-old kid with a small body and a love for a game that neared madness, just like many of you that showed up to Chris's camps through the years. It was at a Sandia Prep baseball camp that I struck a deal with Chris, that if I succeeded in mastering a particular drill at his baseball camp, he would have to give me a pack of baseball cards. I know what many of you are thinking, what's an 8-year-old kid nowadays thinking about baseball cards? But I am. After 2 days of trying, I finally nailed the drill, and Chris told me to come to the back of his car. He popped the trunk open, and there were boxes upon boxes of baseball cards, which he eagerly gave to me. It was safe to say that Chris won my heart over from that moment on. After that day, I looked at Chris in many different ways. As a coach, a mentor, an older brother, and a friend. He'd often come over to my house with the sole purpose of kicking my butt at ping pong. You guys have no idea how, to the extent that he would go just to win. Oftentimes, he would take the ball and hit it across the garage so that I'd have to crawl under my dad's truck to give him time to wear me out. But he would make up for it by taking me to the backyard to teach me how to throw a good curveball. Never have I ever seen someone so competitive and so loving in the span of 5 minutes. And Chris was always there for me, whether it was rain or shine, hot or cold, in or out of baseball season. All I would have to say to get him to come over was that my mom was cooking dinner, and he would be right over. No one appreciated my mom's home cooking as much as Chris. No one also appreciated my homemade chocolate chip cookies as much as Chris. There was one time where we were in the backyard, and I just made a batch of cookies, and there was about 24 of them there. And he told me that he had to go use the bathroom. He came back out, and I thought nothing of it. Maybe he took a little longer than expected in the bathroom. And then I came back inside and there were only 11 cookies left. I was like, Chris, what happened? I just noticed a little smudge of chocolate on his cheek. Before Chris, coaches would see my size as a disadvantage and look past both my abilities and potential. Chris saw my size as an opportunity to outwork each and every person on the field and become the player I wanted to be through the fuel given by the people that said I couldn't play at a high level. No one had ever seen me in that way before, a player with a future, until Chris. Not only that, but he was willing to make an imperfect project, me, as perfect as he possibly could. Chris sent me this text just a month ago, and it read, "The more time and effort we put in, the more confident you'll become. Pretty soon you'll just know you're the best, because how can you not be? Not with how much we've put into this." How could someone not fall in love with a person who believes in them so much? And that was really Chris for you, someone with so much belief. He believed he could make me into a ball player, and he did. He believed he could become the head coach of a powerhouse school in Sandia, and he did. He believed he could win Sandia a state championship, and I sure do believe he would have. A man who had accomplished so much, and yet spent the time to care for each and every individual. That was Chris Eaton. But Chris wouldn't merely talk to me about baseball, however. He taught me how to respect and treat my parents, how to be grateful for what had been given to me in life, and to work harder than everyone else because I couldn't afford not to. I once had the honor of speaking with Roberto Clemente's son, Roberto Clemente Jr., who told me that his biggest piece of advice was to treat every ground ball, every swing, every day as if it is your last, because you never know when it is. I wish I could have had one more game of ping pong with Chris, one more game of catch, just one more conversation, but I cannot. Just lucky that every time I had with Chris, he treated me with such passion, kindness, and love. So from now on, I must trudge on in life without my greatest mentor. I planned my future with Chris in it, just as many of us have. He taught me about us winning state championships together, how he would help guide me through college, and even how we would run a sports bar together, which would have been an absolutely atrocious idea. All of this from a man who never actually coached me from between the lines of the baseball field. Roberto Clemente once said, "You have the chance to accomplish something that will make things better for people coming behind you, and you don't do that, you're wasting your time on this earth." I really do think it's safe to say that Chris wasted no time on earth. Chris, I'll miss you, and I love you. And I just hope to be a good enough man to fill the shoes that you have left here today. Thank you.
That's a signature smile I've ever seen one. My deepest condolences to Scott and Dale Eaton, to my fellow local champion, Michael Eaton, to the Sandia Prep and Sandia High, community. Today we are celebrating the wonderful life of our dearly beloved Chris Eaton. Chris was one of the most passionate men I've ever met. Deeply passionate people like Chris are rare. Extremely passionate people like Chris march to a different drum. Their gift is their passion, and their curse is their passion. They see promise, and they see hope, and they see great possibilities in every one of us, including themselves. They hunger for adventure, and they want to share it. They give their heart and their soul to the everyone they connect with. They work, they play with such emotion and such energy that it marvels we normal earthlings. They can't sleep for fear of missing out on another great adventure or a great idea. They want to walk on the moon and they want to do it as soon as possible. Failure and fear are not part of their rational thought. Achievement's all they think about. Their positive smile is contagious. Example A. It brightens all the rooms that he enters. They give so freely. They give so unconditionally. Guys like Chris drink life from a water hose, a fire hose. They're unselfish. They're winners. They love deeply. They dance uninhibited. They care ferociously. And every second of their life is on go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. But deeply passionate people have a flip side. They have a side that comes with the same intense energy as the bright side, because they hurt so deeply. They hurt 10 times worse than we could ever think pain could be. And when their soul and their heart are hurt, it's hard to deal with. My brother, Chris, doesn't hurt anymore. And for that, I totally understand. I understand. And I choose to see it that way. And as the weeks of tears went by, of me saying goodbye to him, I'm done. I'm dried up. I'm spent. I'm empty. I choose to smile today when I think of Chris, because for 35 years, he gave it hell. He got after it. He accomplished, he traveled, he won, he worked, he shared, and he loved more than anybody in this room. He did it for decades. I hope he and I meet again. And I know when I see him, he'll be seated with Ty Cobb and Jim Morrison. And they'll be smiling like passionate people do, and they'll welcome me into the room and we'll hug. God bless Chris Eaton. He made life count.
To Dale and Scott and Michael, to the Eaton family, and to each of you, we thank you for allowing Chris to be a part of our lives here today. As touching and as troubling as it is, we've come together today. And Chris has brought us together. We've heard all the accolades. We've heard all that he has done. He's made a great accomplishment. He's poured into the lives of each and every one of us. The thing that was so amazing, after I read article after article and talked to young men, is that Chris had the ability to bring young men together, no matter what color of your skin, no matter your religion, no matter your background. Chris was able to bring you together and make you feel like you were somebody. He would take the least that did not believe in themselves and cause them to believe in themselves. He would make them believe that they can accomplish anything that they would set their hearts to do. He took the average, and made them great. He took young people from every walk of life and loved them and cared for them, no matter what section of town they had come from. It was not religion. It was not color. It was the love that came from his heart. He loved you unconditionally. He gave his all. It was he that told you that you could be somebody. Great was Chris, but Chris would always mingle with the least. He would never let who he was and all the accolades that were poured on him get in his way of making you feel that you were important. You've heard from his family, you've heard from his friends that he was competitive. He had a spirit of winning. He had a spirit of believing. He wanted each and every one of you to be the best that you can be. He taught not only sportsmanship, character, but he taught us how to be better people. He taught us how to love even when we were not loved. He taught us to care even when we were not cared for. He taught us to stand even when we had no more strength to stand. It was like I watched a game that was videotaped by a member of his team. And the player had hit a home run. He hit it over the fence. He ran around the bases, touching each one, making sure. Round second, on his way to third, and in the horizon, and in his view was home plate. He ran, until he got to home plate. And there at home plate was Chris and the entire dugout congratulating him on a home run. Even as small as that may seem, it meant so much to those individuals that were with Chris. To those individuals that Chris Eaton was so proud to say, you are a part of the team. And he made all of us, each of you, feel as though you were a part of the team. He made you feel loved. And so I share with you today, love each other. Share with each other. Yes, we all have some mountains that we must climb. Yes, there are some valleys that we must go through. Chris climbed his mountains. Chris went through his valleys. Chris stood the test. Today, don't take the burden on your shoulders by yourself. With your family, with your friends. Share it. Talk about it. Embrace it. And know, and just know that there are people that love you. There are people that care. And just as I saw on the film, you stood at the plate, you hit the ball, and now you're running. But you don't have to do it alone. Do it knowing that when you get to home plate, they'll embrace you, they'll love you, they'll cherish you. Chris, the other day, stood at home plate, hit the ball, touched first, round second, on his way to third, finally, after loving, and caring, and teaching, and holding, and hugging, and sharing, Chris touched home plate. which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Dear Lord, dear God, we will never, ever forget the life of Chris Eaton. Thank you, God, for what he accomplished in his short lifetime. Thank you, God, for allowing him to cross our paths and make us better people. Thank you for him being that beacon of light to young men around this country. Thank you, God. We will always cherish and hold it so deeply in our lives. Bless his mother, bless his father, bless his brother. They too will be encouraged. Chris made it to home plate. No more pain, no more sorrow, no more misery, no more suffering. Saints of old were standing, high-fiving, and greeting, and welcoming, because he crossed home plate. Thank you, God. In your name we pray. Amen. The Eaton family will join you in the reception that has been prepared. Just as Michael and his father and his mother said, they want to hear your stories. There'll be tears, there'll be joy, but please, join them in the reception or in the gym on the other side as we share in the stories of Chris Eaton. To his team, be encouraged. Keep your eyes on the prize. Shoot for the stars. Be successful, not only on the field, but off the field. For truly, Chris would want you to be the very best that you could. God bless you. This concludes our services and our celebration about this outstanding, wonderful, intelligent, articulate individual that poured into all of our lives. Thank you for coming. God bless you. God keep you. And God bless America.